I have to do a whole new intro because I cannot be showing y'all 2 minutes of me freaking out about finna be getting attacked by birds. Can you imagine the headline? Vegan animal lover gets attacked by birds. Hi. You'll see why I'm laughing at the end. I'll keep all of this at the end because literally what is happening. Anyway, I'm here in Riverside Park. I got George Washington Bridge and the river, Hudson River behind me. You can see a little bit of all of that going on. All of this is flipped. So yeah, this is New York over here. That over there is Jersey. And oh, you might be able to see the little red lighthouse if you zoom in. This little boop boop right here is the little red lighthouse, which is a pretty cool little landmark that's still here. It's not functional as a lighthouse anymore, but there are tours and things like that go to it. I think most of them are free. I want to say most of them are free, so if you're ever in the city, you should definitely go there. There are also, if you kind of walk inland up here, there are some really good coffee shops once you get up to that point. I think Cafe Booney is a really great one, Ethiopian owned. They came here, I recently learned, the owners of that coffee shop, they now have like 3 or 4 locations in Manhattan, and then they sell their coffee also. I think the local Trader Joe's sells bags of their coffee, so they're doing extremely well. They came to this country 2011. By 2012 they had the first coffee shop. What? Let's go. Let's really go, stealing our jobs. And that's a joke. That's very much a joke. Anyway, so I'm not here to talk about any of that. I'm not here to talk about geese. Again, you'll get that at the end. I'm not here to talk about any other landmarks in New York City. I'm here to talk about weight loss. I talk a lot about maintaining your weight. I talk a lot about how to build a plate, how to do your groceries for that type of goal, but I haven't yet talked about how to do it, right? Really what you should be considering when you're starting off your journey. I did a video, I should have remembered the title, but I don't remember the title. But I did a video on different things you want to think about, the different things you want to consider when starting your journey, but I haven't talked about specifically how to set it up. So I have some notes here. Hopefully this will be a quick one, and I just want to run through some of those things to set yourself up for starting your weight loss journey, if that's where you want to be. Even before I get into that, I should say it is not, unless if you have a medical professional telling you that you should lose weight, you shouldn't feel compelled to do this if you don't want to. What I'm going to describe here is one tool. It's the most straightforward path. It's not for everyone. It is not for everyone. It is certainly not for people who are really, for the lack of a better word, neurotic. It is not for people who already have issues with food. It's not for people who feel very negatively about their body, especially in relation to numbers and measuring and things like that. Okay, this is for people who may be very mathematical, may be a little nerdy, perhaps. That definitely helped me, because I can look at numbers and things like that and kind of see them as data points, right? So it kind of takes a certain mentality. So what I want you to do is I want you to sit and listen. If you get icky-no-no feelings, it's not for you. And we will definitely talk about different methods, and there are several different methods of getting started on a weight loss journey. This is one tool or one method. It is not the only way. For me, I found that it is the most straightforward path. It is the most foolproof, consistent, things are going to happen way. And it is the mindset that I'm talking about here is also probably the most long-term friendly paired with this kind of method. I'll have a different video about why to track and why not to track, who should track, who should not track. I'll have a different video about why calories matter and why macros matter for different things. I will have, and in that video, I'll probably talk more about why calories and protein are the most important and why carbs and fat are a little bit less important. What I mean by that is that they are, as far as weight loss is concerned, as far as fat loss specifically is concerned, it doesn't matter which of those two other macros is higher than the other. Okay, as long as you're considering calories and protein first, and a couple of other things. But for fat loss and for most things, honestly, as far as body composition, those two things are the most important. I'm not saying that the other two are not important, all right? Okay, you get me. All these disclaimers aside, because people get really in their pants about this sort of thing. So that kind of preamble is unfortunately necessary on the internet when people spin your words into things that you did not actually say. Okay? All right. Okay. So let's talk about a bunch of stuff. So the real step one. Sometimes you'll hear this, sometimes you won't. I'm going to give it to you straight up. Let me retie my shoe. Okay. The real step one I have here is learning what you're already doing. Right? You could do all sorts of calculators, and you probably could and should start there. You could do all sorts of calculators telling you what your macro, like what your total daily energy expenditure is, or what your maintenance calories are. Those are all good places to start, because who is able to say, oh, I should be, or I'm currently eating X amount of calories, right? Unless if you're like a professional bodybuilder or or you've been doing it for a while, right? If you're first starting out, you don't know how many calories are, and you are probably not a good predictor of that, right? You're probably not a good predictor of that because for several reasons. One, these numbers is like, what are we talking about here? Two, a lot of times they're like on labels even. They'll label like a 1,200 calorie diet and a 2,000 calorie diet. And the idea there sometimes is that women should be on 1,200 calories and then men should be on the 2,000 calorie diet. No, 1,200 calories is like a child. Okay, I'm gonna give it to you straight. 1,200 is like a child, or a very like severe diet that is, for someone who is like class 3 obese or more and is medically supervised type of thing. Like that's what 1,200 is, right? Unless you're being very, very careful, you're not doing that for any kind of sustained amount of time, like months and this and that. Absolutely not. Please don't do that for several reasons. One, the mental state that you're in on that low calories for a certain amount of time, it's hard to recover from that. I've seen it. It is hard to recover from that. The way you start seeing food is completely different. The way your body reacts to that is very different. And then also, more importantly, there's nothing more important than your mental state, right? But equally as important, or as devastating, I should say, is that what happens when you are on a extreme calorie deficit for a prolonged amount of time is that your body is an old thing. Your DNA is super old. It's been through a lot, and it understands priority number one is survival. Okay, it's been through famine, it's been through war, it's been through all sorts of stuff. More importantly, famine, right? Your body is designed to try its best to withstand that stuff. If you are on a prolonged calorie deficit that is very severe, your body is designed to make sure that it can run off of that. Because it's saying, look, famine's not going to last forever. We gotta persist. Things start down regulating in order to keep you afloat. You start being more resistant to fat loss. You start using a lot of your own tissue for energy indiscriminately, depending on how you're doing it indiscriminately. At some point, you start losing, obviously, a lot of fat, but a lot of muscle too, and bone, and other tissue. You don't want to get to that point. You really don't, okay? Because now what happens is you lose a whole bunch of muscle, you get off this crazy diet, you gain a lot of fat. You're like, oh no, I'm fat, I gotta be on another crazy diet. Guess what? You're losing more muscle that time too, right? Because a lot of times folks are not pairing resistance training with this, and then now you get into this whole cycle. The other thing that happens with that, when you're losing muscle, your metabolism follows, right? Muscle is your muscle mass is the greatest predictor of what your metabolism is doing. It is the cause of what your metabolism is doing. There's probably a better way of saying that, but stick with me on this. When you're losing muscle, your metabolism lowers and lowers. So what happens if you get in this cycle of losing more muscle mass, gaining fat, losing muscle, gaining fat, and then up and down with the fat too, which is not healthy, right? Your fat mass is doing a lot of fun stuff with your hormones and telling you gotta find food, telling you you're hungry, and blah, 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 a whole bunch of malarkey and jargon, right? Yeah, whatever. Long story short, it's not a place you want to be in. Slow and steady wins the race. You want to be the tortoise, you do not want to be the hare. Because the hare, boom, starts running, and then guess what? Poops out before the race is even over, takes a nap. Okay? Who knows if you ever finish the race? Okay? But the tortoise really is going slow and steady and turns out on top because he actually got to where he's going. And then some. He's probably still out there somewhere. He's in Guam. I don't know where he went to. He's still going, right? But the hare's over here taking naps, probably spinning circles. Doesn't know where the race, what happened to the race? Where'd everyone go, right? Okay, so with that in mind, we want to track where we're at, right? And all of that other stuff that I was saying is to help you understand that where you're at is where you're at. You do not have to be on 1,200 calories. You don't have to be on 2,000 calories. Don't let your mind manipulate you into thinking that, oh, it's actually less than what this says it is. No, you should be in the 2,000s, probably high 2,000s at this point. Maybe 3,000s even, if you're tall and big or whatever, right? If you are big, your body has to run on something. Don't be ashamed of whatever that number is that you're starting off with. In fact, it's probably for the best, because then you can diet on higher calories than someone else. You can still get to your goal if you don't have to magically find yourself at 1,500 calories or something low like that, okay? So how do we figure out where we are? You're going to track. You can do this by hand, although that there's for me, I would think there's a higher learning curve for that, or you can get an app, MyFitnessPal, chronometer. These are all great tools to use. What you do is to the best of your ability, there's going to be some error here. That is fine, especially if you're starting out. That is absolutely fine. You're going to track. What I mean by that is, if you're doing it by hand, and don't do this at the end of the day, do it either at the beginning of the day or, with every meal. Track everything that's going on as far as intake. That means drinks, okay, of all sorts. That means a little bit of condiment you put on, all that sort of stuff. This is going to get you to the best of your ability, right? You don't have to do every gram, although if you're inclined to do that, that's fine. Just understand that this is a temporary thing and that it's not sustainable, right? It's really not, unless if you are a very specific type of person who may or may not be on medication for mental events. So you want to do that, and do that for a week and see what it says. The average of those days is typically what your maintenance would be. Okay, another way to do this without measuring all of that, because sometimes, you know, what's measured, sometimes you start already doing manipulations because you're like, oh damn, that's how many calories, let me eat less later, and doing all that. So now you're not really looking at what you're normally actually eating, right? So another way to do this is your body weight times 15. That's generally around what you need to maintain your current mass. Generally 16, maybe 14, you know, depending, right? But that's generally it. Okay. Often looking at what you're eating alone, either doing a diet recall, just writing down what your meals are and everything in your meal, or doing the tracking that I mentioned, like the purposeful tracking that I mentioned, often that alone is enough to get the ball rolling. I would the other thing is you should take your weight before and after. If it's generally around the same weight, great, right? That's great. And you want to do this for a week, maybe 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks is better. If your weight is the same, perfect. Then we know that whatever calories, the average daily calories, that actually is around what your maintenance is. Now we have a starting point. Generally, 500 less than that is normally where people start. It could be a little bit less than that. It could be 300 calories. It could even be 250 if you want like a real gentle start, right? But I would say 500 calorie deficit is where you want to be, okay? Does that mean that this is now step 2? Okay, where do we go from here once we realize what our maintenance is? 500 is a great place to start, right? It doesn't mean that you're eating now 500 less calories. You can combine 2 things to get you into that deficit. 1, more activity, and 2, less calories, right? So typically what folks should be doing, or what I would recommend, is if you're doing 500 less calories, some of that should be adding additional activity to your day, and then the rest should be food, okay? And then as you're going along, week 3, week 4, week 5, then you can do manipulations from there. But we're starting off at 500, some of that being walking, for example, right? So if you have a step counter, or if you look at your phone, check your average daily steps for the previous month or the previous X amount of time, right? Whatever that average is, if you want to do 6 months, that's perfect, right? Whatever that average is, now we're doing maybe 2,000 more steps, right? 2,000 to 5,000 more steps. You should be in a range of 7,000 to 10,000 steps. Generally, for most people, that's totally enough to get started. And we can call that 100, 200 calories. And the rest of those calories, the rest of your deficit is coming from a reduction in calories that you're eating. And that's that. That's how to get started, right? You want to also, those are 2 habits already, right? Or actually 3, right? Because the monitoring, the first week or 2 of monitoring, you've gotten a lot of information about typically what you eat. If you're really into it, you're getting kind of more of the macronutrient ratio, like, oh, I thought I was eating way more protein, I'm not. Or, oh, wow, I'm eating a lot of fat, relative to what I thought I was. Or, oh, I didn't know that I was eating so much sugar, right, or refined carbohydrates and things like that. So all of that is information that is helping you to update your eating habits, right? More veg is always or more plants in general is always a great thing. More protein, right, is always a great thing. We'll talk about that a little bit in probably another video, kind of the, what should I be eating? What should my deficit come from? Like what types of calories should I be leaning towards and things like that. That'll probably be a separate video because I am quickly running out of time. What time is it? But yeah, so habit 1 is kind of doing a little bit to clean up the diet. I wouldn't think at the, like first 3 weeks or so, I wouldn't think too much of it. You just want to keep those 2 things in mind, right? The deficit that you've decided, it'll probably be actually 300 calories less as far as food, and then the more activity, right? The 3,000 more, steps a day. And that could be, like taking the stairs more often, parking at the end of the parking lot instead of trying to find the nearest one, et cetera, et cetera. Doing your groceries by foot and carrying a backpack with you, right? If you live a place where it's safe to walk to the grocery store and close enough, obviously, things like that. So those are some of the habits that are going to make this whole thing easier before we even get into kind of dialing in our calories even more, and then looking at the macros and things like that, right? You should be eating more protein. You should be for our purposes eating fewer calories, right? And it doesn't have to be that drastic. And then you should be walking more and increasing your daily activity. That alone is enough to get people towards where they're trying to go, for sure. Certainly if you're just trying to lose like a cute 5-10 pounds, that is certainly enough. That's certainly enough. And not much more is necessary, right? But if you have way more to go, we'll talk more about that. We'll talk more about that later. The other thing I want to say is reducing your calories a lot right off the bat without getting some of these like general habits in place, it's going to make it harder and miserable, right? If you just right off the bat, okay, I'm going to track every macro, I'm going to 500 calorie deficit all from food, 700 calorie deficit off, 1,000 calorie deficit all from food, and I'm just going to be perfect, because your motivation is high when you start, and if you are a very disciplined person, I guess you could say, or someone who like is very perseverant, kind of stick to your guns type person, you might for a while be really motivated to continue in this way right off the bat. It may also be an all or nothing person, so that'll sustain you for some time, and then suddenly you burn out. I encourage you to take it low and slow. It's better to gradually change than to try to change drastically and then be back at square one, having wasted that time. If you want to do that and fail and then come back to this video, come back to other videos, and then realize, yeah, I guess what they're talking about is true, that's your prerogative. Sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need to fail to like fully understand what the impacts are, and then to be able to hold that with you, hold that memory of failure with you on your next time to help you stick to something that's more sustainable. That's totally fine. You have your whole life to lead, or your whole life to live, right? So go on. But I'm telling you, for most people, you want to be able to sustain this. The habits that I'm talking about, more activity, eating more plants, eating more protein, right? Having a lot of whole foods in your diet. Doesn't have to be 1,000% whole food. Having a lot of whole foods in your diet. Other things too, hydration, sleep, which I haven't talked about in this video, which is wild to me because most of what you are trying to have happen is happening in your sleep. Okay? I mean, sleep research is like, thank goodness for sleep research, but also it is such a huge thing that there's not enough space on YouTube to talk about it, honestly. So getting those types of regular behaviors in, managing stress, all of these are so tied to this journey that you're about to embark on. I can't even begin to tell you. Getting enough of a handle on those things before you start calculating and and doing all sorts of other manipulation is really going to help you not only get to where you're going, but stay there or around about there, right? You're not going to arrive at a number weight and then stay there. It's not going to happen. I'm so sorry. Especially if you are obese. Coming from obesity myself, I fluctuate up and down. It is what it is. It is what it is, right? Those fat cells are still there. And they're going to puff up and reduce and puff up and reduce depending on, unless if you're being very meticulous in a way that you're probably not happy in your life. Okay. So anyway, if you're trying to get to where you're going and kind of stick around there, you have to get a lot of these like other more gentle daily habits in your life so that you are not struggling and that you're not going to give up later on and get back to square one. Okay, this was a lot of rambling. I got through about half of what I was talking about. I got to get to work. I'm already late. So I will talk to you later. The next video will probably get more into calories and things like that. Again, this is one method of doing it. There are other methods that I will talk about. Stick around. If this wasn't for you, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. We're going to talk about all this other stuff and the mental hurdles and the difficulties that are involved in all of these different methods. If any of this interests you, if any of this spoke to you, please hit the like button. Subscribe if you have not already. Most of you are not subscribed that kind of wander into my videos, and I appreciate you for watching. Thank you so much. Hit the subscribe button. We're going to talk a lot more about this in the future, and I wish you well. If you are someone who is or has been struggling with fat loss, if you are someone who doesn't know where to start, feels very nervous about this sort of thing, perhaps knows that you have to start considering your health and your metabolism, like if you're someone who's pre-diabetic or any of those things and it's on your mind, I'm hoping this is one of the places that you'll find some help, and I want you to win. I want you to win, and I'm saying this very sincerely and very because it's a problem with solutions. This is something that has been, from this method you can see, it's a problem that's been mathematically solved and now medically solved as well, right? There are kind of medical, pharmaceutical solutions that we now have, which I think is great. There's issues and problems with that, with access, with the medications themselves and this and that, but I think just as the human race, we are finding so many solutions to the problems that we kind of created, okay, fine. But I think there's hope here, and I want you to feel encouraged, and I want you to feel like, wow, there are so many tools available for me to help myself and help others. And we're going to get you there. We're going to get you there. We got this. Slow and steady wins the race. Today is going to be better than tomorrow. Today is going to be better than yesterday, and tomorrow could be better than today with small steps. So we talked about step one, looking at your intake. Where are you already at? Where you're currently at? That is our starting point. That is the start line. We know that we have to reduce whatever that calorie number is. We have to reduce it a little bit, not a whole lot, a little bit. And a portion of that is coming from more daily activity. A great metric is, okay, how many steps do I normally have in my day? If that's 4,000, great. We're bringing that to 6,000 or 7,000. The rest of the calorie deficit, we can call that 200 calories. The rest of the calorie deficit is going to come from a reduction in calories that we're eating. We'll talk more about the rest of it later on. Okay. I hope you're having a great day. Bye. Absolutely not. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No. Yeah, you real cute. You looking real cute, and then you're gonna be violent all of a sudden, right? When I don't got bread. Nope. Not here. Not here. Not at all. Oh my God. Yo, I'm about to get murdered. Okay. Alright. Okay, my bad. Okay. Okay, I think you're minding your business. Alright. Then you call back up? Yeah. No, I don't mess with geese. I've seen you. I've seen you. I've seen your true colors. Hey y'all, I'm out here in Riverside Park. You can see George Washington Bridge behind me. Hope that's giving you a good view. It is the early morning. There is pretty much no one out here. It's getting close to work time, so I'm gonna make this really brief and quick for two reasons. One, I just mentioned, and two, there are two geese staring at me and I have no weapons. If I showed you how close they are, you would tell me to run. I think they just want food. I'm wondering if, oh my God, I'm wondering if they can smell the food that I've brought for myself. Oh my God. Y'all gotta watch my bag. They don't play. I've seen it. Oh my God. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about geese, but oh my God, I'm not here to talk about geese. I'm not here to get killed by these geese neither. I think they're gonna mind their business. Oh Lord. Now he's looking at me from across the... Oh my God, I took a clip before I started recording. Look, I took a clip before I started recording. They're even closer than what that clip was showing. Lord above, somebody come help. This is why no one was sitting here. This is legit why no one was sitting here. Why am I dumb? Why am I dumb? Drop a comment as to why you think I'm dumb. I need to know. Anyway, listen, I should probably look up, where did they go? Oh, they're still staring. Okay, I should probably look up what I need to do to protect myself from these damn geese, because they are circling me, and I think that's some sort of predatory behavior. I do that. Oh, they're walking away now. Okay, not fast enough for my liking.